So that's why, like even our company, we're Rocket Station Virtual Staffing, because virtual assistant, both on the hiring side in the Philippines as well as here in the States, it kind of brings that connotation of, oh, they can just do like admin tasks, like manage my calendar, clean up my, like, no, like they can do data analysis, run transactions for you, do acquisitions, cold calling, right? So it's really more of a virtual professional.
What's going on, guys? In this episode of the Collecting Keys Real Estate Investing Podcast, we have Greg Brooks, and a slight tangent from the real estate focused content because he is a light real estate investor, but more importantly, he runs a VA staffing firm called Rocket Station. And I loved the content that he brought, Dan, because
it's awesome.
It's super great because not only does this guy run a VA staffing firm, he actually runs a good one. And not like a lot of the bullshit ones that you've probably seen out there where they're like,
we've tried some of them.
We've tried a lot of them. There's an abundance of ones that are terrible where their whole business model is to get you to pay $10 an hour for the $3 an hour VA. Mm-hmm. Then you fire them and they say, oh my God, we're sorry. They were terrible. We'll get you a new one. And they just try to keep you on the hook. You don't actually get
that
results.
$3 an hour VA for someone else.
Exactly. But they actually even go the extra mile where not only do they provide you the VA, but they help you build out your internal systems and processes to more effectively utilize that VA.
Well, and you and I know as well, like from all the VAs we've had, that's the point of where a VA succeeds or fails, is if you, as the business owner, actually provide them the systems and processes to do their job.
Yeah.
With anything. With
anything. Yeah, for sure. And they help you overcome that gap by coming in, they charge a cost like $2,000, not even that much, to literally come in and do that for you. So even if you're a small business owner, I guarantee you have these processes that you need to do, and you've been pushing off for months, for Dan and I, freaking 3 years. He will come and make so you don't have to do that for $2,000 and give you a VA that will do that task that he just helped you build. And you can just have a much more robust business without having to deal with like the gray area we're trying to figure out how to manage these people.
Well, and I love, just lastly here, how aligned he was with how we treat VAs. Like he's like, oh, he said it multiple times, they're people, and they train them and develop them, and they internally promote and increase pay. That doesn't affect you. They do that on their end just like you would in the US with an employee. They really try to develop them into awesome people for you, because that's how you're successful. And I just think that that's so valuable, because so many people hiring VAs or staffing with VAs just treat them like, I don't know, like a peg that you're supposed to put in a round hole, and every once in a while it's in the square hole or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. I get what you're saying. I think you missed the metaphor there, but yeah, I think I got it.
Yeah, you know what I mean. I don't have my calculator with me. Sorry.
But yeah, totally valid. And just a good holistic view about it too. I mean, ultimately, business is about helping people, and his business that he runs with his VA staffing firm. It's not just about helping the business owners, even though we are the main characters. We're Americans, right? That's how it rolls. But of course. He's actually making sure that the VAs are able to grow and progress in their careers as well. And that is, that's very, very important for longevity with these folks. So anyways, guys, reach out to Greg. He offers a super awesome service. We had a good conversation with him afterwards. We're probably going to explore working with him a little bit. And we're also going to have him come and do a talk for our Instant Investor program. So if you're curious about joining that, you should come and check out the Instant Investor program, because then you can get some private Q&A session with people like Greg. Yep. So anyways, guys, share this podcast with anyone who might find it interesting. All of your business friends. This is a great business related episode that's outside of real estate a little bit. Besides that, go to collectingkeyspodcast.com/free to get our free 5-step guide to start generating off-market leads. And again, I'm going to put this out there because I put it out there before. First person to get a Collecting Keys tattoo, I will write you a check for $1,000 and I will send it to you.
That's so much money. $1,000.
I mean, a tattoo will probably cost more than that, but that's not my business.
You got to up it.
So anyways, guys, enjoy the show with Greg Brooks. Tons of great stuff in here. And if you don't enjoy it, I don't know what to tell you, because there is nothing but knowledge in here.
Enjoy.
All right. Greg Brooks, VA extraordinaire, here with us today from Rocket Station. So appreciate you coming on, Greg. For those who don't know what you do or what Rocket Station is, maybe give us like a 50-foot view, and we will dive into how you have mastered the virtual assistant game.
Yeah, that's awesome. Mike, Dan, thanks for having us on. So Rocket Station, so we're real estate specific. Some call us boutique, specialized virtual staffing. and placement company. And really like what is unique about what we do, there's lots of VA companies out there. I'm sure lots of your listeners leverage VAs. I know we were talking, you guys do as well. What we do is on top of the hiring, the recruiting, the training that we do of thousands of Filipino-based virtual assistants overseas. We're real estate investors ourselves, and we realize having a VA is one thing. Knowing what to do with that VA and how to set them up for success is a totally different thing. And especially for real estate investors, usually when you're trying to hire VAs, you don't usually have a lot of time, right? There's either big market opportunity, you're trying to move into a new market, you've just bought a list and spent money, and you've got to convert that into deals. So having the background in real estate that we do, what we do is we help our clients document the systems and processes that they want their VAs to carry out. So build custom training, step-by-step SOP guides, manuals, recording, scripting, so that when we place them with an expert trained real estate virtual assistant, the VA is empowered and they know what it is they need to do, what the expectations are, and it just helps them onboard and it really helps the investor leverage the true talents of that virtual assistant.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I love that you start off with emphasizing that point, because anybody who's listening to this, if you've ever worked with a VA staffing company before, pretty sure this is your experience. Was you go, they say it's going to be, this much per month, this much per hour. And then they bring you someone who kind of speaks English, kind of gets it, but they're not really aware about what you're hiring them for. And even though the staffing company was like, no, we have people that are legit.
We have real estate transaction coordinators.
Yeah, but this is a recent experience we had. They went and they found like a $3 an hour VA that they're now billing you $10 an hour for. They have margin on it, and they're just hoping that you keep them around long enough for them to get paid. And then, you fire the VA, they take them back and they just put them with somebody else. Yep. And that's the same with these staffing companies, with these cold calling companies, with so many of these lead gen companies where they give you overseas cold callers. It's all bullshit if you don't have a system and process. But Greg, that's what you guys specialize in, is making sure that you're not getting the shitty VA, but you're actually giving someone that's educated and helping the company itself build out the system, right?
Exactly. So we view it kind of in two lenses. It's, hey, we need to set the VA up to be successful. Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. So we know a lot of them, but a lot of these fly by night VA companies, oh yeah, we have real estate trained VAs. Well, that means that they maybe are a real estate investor themselves. They maybe leverage VAs, and then they started this little side hustle business where they get their VAs friends jobs, but the training might be a 20-minute conversation before they assign them to you as the client. Right. So we're all about, we have a 6-week curriculum that every VA goes through. So it's about setting the person up for success. But the second part of that is setting the company up for success, right? We have we have a big feeling that even when you're hiring locally, a lot of investors, a lot of REI companies, they kind of bottleneck themselves because they rely on internal team members, for a lot of them out there, you usually have a small team if you have a team at all. And a lot of real estate investors probably wouldn't list training and management as a top 5 personal skill that they have in their business, right? Getting deals, negotiations, those are the skills. But in order to set people up for success, that's just not a lot of investors, strong suit. So we really help, help the VA be successful, but also help the client be successful so that they can leverage the individual.
Right. Yeah. I appreciate you just from a human standpoint, because that's something else that I find, especially with American entrepreneurs, is they always look at it man, these VAs are they suck, whatever, but they're human beings. And as the staffing company, you want them to be successful in their careers, the VAs. It's not just about the American company.
And they like to learn. They want to be trained, right?
That's exactly the point, Dan, is so many of them are driven. They just don't have the the support system or things like that to get where exactly they want to go.
Let's talk about that for a second, maybe, if you could, Greg, because it sounds like you definitely specialize in the Philippines. You could get a VA. We're using that word pretty broadly. You get a VA from anywhere. You get a VA from the US, right? There's just a virtual assistant, virtual employee, whatever you want to call it. But in the Philippines, what's the culture around this? Because it's a huge industry in the Philippines in particular. I would just love to understand from your perspective and your experience, what does that culture look like? What type of people are you drawing into this business? What type of people come to this business from the Philippines?
Yeah, no, definitely. So kind of the long and the short of it, last 20, 25 years, really since the internet started to stabilize, most of the Fortune 500, all of the major financial institutions in the US, VA virtual assistants, or really just outsourced team members, have been pivotal in them making their stock price number every single year, right? That's how they leverage a lot of the back office operational work. So the type of person that you're talking about, and you're right? A lot of no investor is going to fall on the sword and be like, oh, I didn't do a good enough job. The good ones will, but most of them it's, oh, my VA sucked. They didn't know how to cold call. They didn't, which sometimes is fair. Most of the time isn't. The types of people that we're recruiting, I mean, they have college educations. The Philippines is known around the world. I mean, it is a third world country by comparison, but they have the highest education rates of any third world country anywhere in the world. Wow. Even though it's in Southeast Asia, English is a very primary language there. Most of my team members, they're tons of different linguistic talents. Most of them speak 4 or 5 different tongues, English being the primary. That's what all the schooling systems are in. And the types of people we're recruiting, like I have many team members on my team in the business development side of our business who have worked 5, 10, 15 years at JP Morgan, Citigroup, AT&T, Verizon. So when you talk about like cultural assimilation, from a professional standpoint, they're very used to working in the Western world because they've worked in this remote setup for some of the largest US companies. And especially during COVID, we've been able to unlock better, more qualified talent because the same way nobody in the US wants to go back into the office, it's the exact same in the Philippines, right? And kind of prior to COVID, everything, both here in the States as well as in the Philippines, had this virtual assistant tag to it, which that just doesn't do justice for what the capabilities of that individual are, right? So that's why, like even our company, we're Rocket Station Virtual Staffing, because virtual assistant, both on the hiring side in the Philippines as well as here in the States, it kind of brings that connotation of, oh, they can just do like admin tasks, like manage my calendar, clean up my, like, no, like they can do data analysis, run transactions for you, do acquisitions, cold calling, right? So it's really more of a virtual professional. And through our platform, we were helping our team members, pre-COVID, make that transition, being like, hey, you can get all the same pay, better benefits than working at a JP Morgan or at a Convergys, which handles AT&T and Verizon, American Express, and work remote from the safety of your home. And you can still have a very professionalized position, right? That's driving a lot of value for your clients. So we really, like I said, the talent base that we're seeing and unlocking, because just the employment, demands or wants of a Filipino are really not that different than what you see here in the States now, with people wanting to work either fully or at least hybrid, remote.
Right.
Yeah. I love it. No, that's cool. And I mean, it makes perfect sense. And I've always found that as well. Even when we are, we've interviewed VAs to come work for us, and once several of them that have worked for us, we've had. So I think I was looking at our Slack channel at the people that have come and gone. We have like 25 different members that have come and gone from the company over 3 years, which is crazy for various roles. And more often than not, a lot of the VAs, not only are they educated, like in like the bigger picture stuff, right? But even like the micro systems that we have a lot of time training up American staff how to appropriately use, like things like that are super basic, like Google Drive, like Excel, Slack,
basic functions of your CRM. Like, yes, when you're working with someone overseas, like they've had to use these tools because
they totally get it
their entire life.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Exactly. And so you don't have to waste time on those things. And it's more just around education on the nuances of your business and like the specifics of whatever your business model is, right? Which is great, because like on the other side with American staff, we've had great American staff like that have come in and, had potential, but they're just like, I can't figure out the CRM, and they quit. Yeah. And you're like, come on, like really?
It's like
really?
The
it doesn't make any
thing
sense
too, right? It's like, how do you not know technology in this world?
And most of all the CRMs that we deal with, it's like the CRM is designed to be a tool that anyone could pick up and learn. You know what I mean? So it's like, you're just not trying. Yeah. You don't really care.
Right.
Yeah. But the point is, the culture there is that they understand that, and they are, coming in with that sort of base skill set already in mind, which I think is super, super valuable, something that's regularly overlooked. So you mentioned all the different roles that VAs can be, brought on for. The one that, everyone knows about the admin sort of roles. You hear about people having these VA, even transaction coordinators, those sort of things. Something that's always fascinated me is people that use virtuals for sales roles. I'd love to have you dive into that. A, selfishly, because I'm super interested in that, but also too, I've had several people ask me about, have you ever used virtuals to do actual hard closing sales? We've used virtuals for like lead management and cold follow-up, but actual hard sales, the main issues we've always had have been A, the accent. that many of them have, it just reeks telemarketer, right? And like really damages credibility sort of early on. And that's market dependent too. Like if you're in a rural market, it's a little bit tougher than if you're in like Seattle. And also too, just the confidence around closing. We found that more often than not, they have trouble, from our experience, pushing for the close, and they default to being an information gatherer. And then they need to go and talk to the back office to make a decision, when really you need a closer if they're doing true acquisition. So I'd love to just hear how you guys coach that, your thoughts on all that.
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, for us, I think the confidence piece of it, which it's very valid point, but for us, confidence comes with knowledge. So what I tell people, I mean, even thinking like local, like US based, I mean, finding really good closers is just tough to begin with, right? I mean, I just got back from a conference, this week, and it's like, I don't know if it's people being locked up for 2 years or 3 years, whatever, wherever you were, but like even just getting people to talk to you, to be like, hey, we're at this event, let's interact and network, is like pulling teeth these days, right? So I feel like salespeople are just in general kind of this like unicorn, this like whimsical, like if I can just find someone who can do it, my business will 10x, right? So, but what I say to that is, having a process and having education is what's going to build that confidence, right? So often, especially in the investor VA relationship, VAs, whether it's because of that client they're working for now or because of past experiences, they're used to no results, you get chopped, right? Because a lot of investors out there, they don't want to invest the time. A lot of them don't even, view the virtual team member as a member of their team, which we feel like is the biggest mistake, right? Even if you're hiring this person just for 10 hours a week, 5 hours a week, put them into your Slack channels, communicate with them, give them some processes, give them some training so they can really feel like they're a part of the team. I mean, I know we have clients. It's definitely not something that I say, hey, we have a whole team of closers that just hire us right now, and for $10 an hour, we'll get it for you. It's definitely one of those skills that we find virtual assistants mature into. So one of the most common roles that we leverage and plug into is like a virtual lead manager. So it's kind of that hybrid between like information gatherer, lead qualifier, cold caller, text, whatever. But it's also the person making additional callbacks for additions, sending out kind of the soft offers, getting a feel for, hey, this is what we could do. And we find that role works very well to mature the VA along and to give them that confidence and to give them that knowledge to be able to help convert more. And then for, say, whether you're the business owner and you're the one converting, having to act as the acquisitions person, or if you have an acquisitions person as well, so often like we see our clients are just missing out on, tens of thousands of dollars simply because they touch a lead less than 3 times. Right. So from that initial interaction to getting them in the CRM, to following up with them, there's usually less than 3 touch points. Right. And in sales, for some of our top clients, their magic number is 11, 12, 13 touch points between texts and follow up and calls and emails. So that lead manager role, we find it to be super valuable for our clients because it creates a platform where the VA has a little bit more control and a little bit more skin in the game to push that negotiation along, which in 6 months, a year and a half gives them the confidence where you can transition them into a full acquisitions role, right? Where they can be pushier because they've been in more of these situations. But it also has an immediate impact on the client's business because most leads, we get the 2 or 3 that are actually motivated and the rest sit in the CRM for 6 months, a year. And so we're like, hey, we have a lot of data here. Let's try to get something going, right? Let's run a new call campaign or run a text campaign. So you win on both sides. You keep your current acquisition people happy because they're working warm, hot, motivated leads constantly. You're also building the confidence and building the training through practical execution of your virtual assistant, knowing you can level them up. But then you're also not having data that goes to die that you've paid for. So like I said, I think the closer role, and there's a little bit of a cultural difference with the Philippines as well. I mean, I tell people this, I mean, they're just the nicest, hardest working culture of people that you'll ever come across in your life. And they want to do well, right? So part of it with, being in the VA space and, maybe used to working for clients where it's like, oh, you didn't find me 6 warm leads today, you're fired on your second day. You know what I mean? Like that creates a certain angst. So giving them the confidence to understand really what you're doing, the disposition strategy you utilize, all that stuff, but then also just building that trust as the team, letting them know it's okay to fail, like listening to their calls, investing a little bit of time on the front end whether that's through documented process or just time with them to set that contextual understanding. It pays 10, 100, 1,000x on the back end, but it does take a little bit of time.
Right.
Yeah. So I guess the short version being treat them like human beings.
Yeah.
That's
helpful, right? Or I have a follow-up to that too. And I think I know what the answer is going to be. And you just started touching on it, but do you have any recommendations for folks that have VAs and they want to move them along in the growth of their business? Because all too often what I've seen happen is you hire somebody and then you do want them to move up into that, maybe that act manager role or whatever that next level is, but they are so built into or so used to running that system that it's like, I always say it's like they run into a closed door and then they don't know what to do. So they have to ask you, what do I do next? And it's like, open the door. Like, how do you bridge that so that you're not building a person that just pushes buttons? Because that's so easy to do, honestly, on both sides of the relationship.
That was just such a funny comment, Dan. Sorry, that was just such a funny comment. It's so true. We always joke about that with our guys. They'll be like, okay, now go fill out this spreadsheet. And they're like, okay, cool, I'm done. They're like, well, where is it? Like, oh, it's on my computer. It's like, no, put it back on the drive. You have to be super specific.
Right. Yeah, it's like, how do you get beyond that? Because you do need to start there with any employee of like step by step, but how do we grow past that? Because I'd love to know.
Yeah, no, definitely. So this is where like the process piece of our business really comes in play. For a lot of our clients, like to just keep using acquisitions. What we do is we feel like just a lot of companies, like they don't really run a process driven company. And if they do have some processes, it's usually the 6 inches between their ears. Right. So I think initially, and whether it's a new hire, whether it's someone who you want to mature through the company and promote. I mean, I've never hired someone who in the first week didn't want to impress, right? Sure. And so many, it doesn't happen very often, but we hear these nightmare stories of people who are even looking into our services. We're like, oh, I had a VA, they sucked, and I fired them 3 days later. I'm like, no, you suck.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I feel like having the process, right? Running a process-driven sales team is, and what I mean, that can be documentation. That can be standard templates and scripting. That can be even just having KPIs and metrics, right? Communicating clearly like, hey, your job now is not to follow up with 100 leads per week. Your job is now I'm scoring you against, this much capital or whatever the outcome is, and creating those very clear metrics. And our sweet spot is like 3 to 5. We feel like whether it's a local team member or a VA, if you're trying to have somebody control more than 3 to 5 key KPIs for that role, you probably need more people, or you've got somebody doing something that they're not the greatest at. But I think that's the biggest thing anytime you're trying to mature somebody through. And then the second part of that is like, let them fail. You know what I mean? Like, don't so often just with employees that we're trying to mature and run through with we as business owners, it's, well, just let me do it for you. It's like, no, like take the time, understand that maybe the Excel sheet, right? Maybe it's going to take an extra 3 hours. Maybe it's one column isn't going to be where you would do it, right? But like I always go back to the Rockefeller quote, like I'd rather make 1% off 100 people's work than 100% off of just my work, right? So it's having that expectation and creating the feedback loop, right? Knowing they're not going to be perfect, encouraging them to fail, and then picking them up and coaching them through it while backing that up with documented processes and systems. It will help them say either run through that door or at least open it up and not hurt themselves on
right. Yeah, right. Yeah, I think a big part of that too comes down to that VAs are kind of sold to inexperienced entrepreneurs and business owners, and so they aren't in a place that they can understand or they comprehend as like the business owner, that if something internally, like an administrative task, gets messed up and it takes 2 days longer, that's not the end of the world.
Right.
Like if you're approaching your business on such a short timeline, you kind of need to reassess something because you're not going to be successful.
And what I would say to that as well, and I'll say this is partly because of the virtual assistant industry and the staffing industry as well. There's a lot of companies, and we've been guilty of it as well, where they sell VA services like remember the Staples commercial that was easy button?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
They sell the services where it's like, hey, just hire this person and magically they're going to fix your business or know exactly what you want. And it's just, like I said, VAs can be the most valuable, the best people to leverage in any business, especially in real estate, but thinking you're not going to have to invest some time into it to set it up for success. It's why we structure our experience the way we do, where, it takes about 10 days to 2 weeks for us to walk through with the business owner we call it the download, to get the processes out of your head, formalize the documentation, put the structure in place. But yeah, I mean, the VA industry is just guilty of selling VA services as, oh yeah, everybody needs a VA. Well, yes, everybody needs a VA, but they also need to have some clear outcomes and expectations and some process in place so that VA can be the VA that they're being advertised as.
For sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, ultimately, anything that sounds like it's too good to be true probably is.
Yeah.
It's just a general rule for life. And here's how I know you're not full of it, Greg, is the fact that you express that at the start. Anyone that goes and tells you that I can solve your problem instantly, I can do this so easy if you just like give me this money, they're always not telling you the full truth.
Absolutely. No, the systems and planning seem to be the massive key and that's what I've experienced. You have to have a system. You have to plan for them. Otherwise you get them to show up and you're like, I don't have time to teach you. I mean, that is a big problem. And what would you say the number one thing you'd recommend? Say you've got a solopreneur and they're going to hire their first ever employee of their business. What would you recommend they do before that person starts?
Oh, the very basics of it. Loom or the Zoom record feature should be your number one favorite thing that you do, right? Even if it's as simple as, hey, I'm going to hire a freelance VA for a few hours a week to clean up my inbox for me. Go throw on a Zoom or throw on a Loom. And for anybody who doesn't know, Google it. It's a video recording platform, and just make a video of yourself doing that task first, right? And I'd say that's the very basic, but you have to give some kind of structure. You have to give some type of expectations. And don't get me wrong, there are jobs out there, like we were talking about, like technical development, website coding, like that type of stuff. You're probably looking for a different type of service provider or a different type of VA. But for most of what people are hiring VAs for, cold calling, acquisitions, general admin, transaction coordination, go do it yourself, or have the person on your team who's currently doing it, who you're trying to get some bandwidth back out of them. Say, hey, I'm going to get you the VA that you need. Go make a 20-minute recording to show me how you do this so that I can hand it off that way.
For sure. Yeah.
There you go. That's a great hack right there. That's something we've been doing recently as well, has been having internal members do that. Or something else we'll do too is if we need a step-by-step, we will record it and then we'll give it to the VA and say, hey, take this video and turn it into like a Word document. Exactly. And they do a great job with that.
So good at that. They're way better at that than I am.
Honestly,
yeah. They like highlight things.
Our team, we call them our process engineers. So we've got a team of about 60 now, and it's 95% based in the Philippines, where they work with, like I said, up and coming startup investors all the way up to some of the biggest names in the industry. And that's all they're doing. It's definitely not my character suit, right? We were talking about like the visionary real estate investor. Not a lot of real estate investors want to sit and document step one, log into CRM but like you need that level of documentation. So whether it's hiring a VA, leveraging a service like ours, like there are people out there that love that, I'll call it nerdiness of the process, and who can make very incredible training and process docs that your team can leverage and that your team will really value.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's awesome. So that was a great question, Dan, about the new business owner, new investor. You mentioned at the start, Greg, you guys help build SOPs and all these sort of things for VAs to be successful. So, and I imagine that is working specifically with the business owners as well. Could you talk about kind of what that looks like? So like looking at Dan and I, our background, we've been at this for, over 3 years. We've done several hundred deals. Like we have a established routine and business procedures that are half in our head, half documented. If we were to work with you, what would that look like for you to insert your VAs in your system in our business to help it be successful on both sides?
Yeah.
Definitely. So where we always want to hone in on for the first hire is like, what's the immediate need, right? Anybody coming looking for a VA, there's something that's on fire, or there's some opportunity they need somebody for. So we always start with the job specific function. And really it's either sitting with you or saying, hey, send us those Loom recordings. Or for what a lot of our clients, like they like the accountability of having a meeting with our process engineers where they're like, hey, I know I can time block the next hour and we can go through how I do my lead management, my acquisitions, right? Like almost for real estate investors, it's nice having that accountability of like, I know I'm going to shut the world off for this hour and go through it. So, whatever way is easiest for the client to get it to us, but it's really just diving into that process. And the thing that's nice with our teams is we've got 8.5 years in this industry, right? We've worked with, whether you're just trying to get to one deal consistently per month, or you're like you guys and you've done over 150 transactions, right? We work with clients who do 20 transactions a month. we also can help, whether it's the technology question, whether it's best practices, whether it's, hey, what functions of this job is a VA going to be best suited for? We help not only get the information out of you, but you're also leveraging literally hundreds of other clients who maybe are at the size you are now, but are trying, but have gotten to a bigger level, who could help make sure those processes aren't just set up to immediately hand the work off, but they're also set up for your 6-month goal, your year-long goal, for what you think your business is going to look like in 3 years. So I tell people it's great having that resource there. And then for the longevity of our relationship, we're working with you to continue to update, refine, add to those process docs, because we genuinely feel like most investors, the average real estate investor lasts less than 2 years in the industry, and most of them flame out because they become the center of that spider web, right? Where they have to do everything. They've got to buy the list. They got to make the call. And it doesn't ever unlock the freedom that we hear so much about with real estate, right? So we work on that partnership to help the entrepreneur and just continue to grow and continue to add on. And through good times in the businesses, we've all just come through a little bit of a market reset, right? So we're actively working with our clients to refine those processes to make sure that your team is set up correctly, that you've got the right number of people, and that they have clarity in what they're doing and how they're doing it.
Awesome. That's good stuff. And what's a typical cost, I guess, for you to work with as a consultant at that point, as well as for the VA, like on a regular reoccurring basis? 'Cause that's something else that always gets me too, is you always hear these people that are on social media. They're like, yeah, I have like a $3 an hour VA that does this, and they crush it. I know you're a liar, because no $3 an hour VA.
Yeah, that's not the going rate.
I'll say we don't even hire $3 an hour VA.
Yeah.
So what's a realistic expectation for all that?
Yeah, for us. So for the actual VA services, we do part-time or full-time. For our business model, for the caliber of individual, like, we're trying to help entrepreneurs grow a company, right? If we're helping them, even if your goal is, hey, I just want to consistently do 2 deals a month, we're trying to get you team members who are, number one, team members, right? They feel like members of your team, but who have longevity within your company. Whereas, kind of going back to what you said about a lot of the VA companies out there, it's, hey, we'll place you with somebody, and then we have manager support. Well, that manager support is really just there waiting for you to say, hey, my VA sucks, and they go get you a new VA, right? That's their management support, unfortunately. So we're in it for the longevity. So how we structure it. So for the VAs themselves, we have a part-time or a full-time option, fully dedicated. So they only work for you, hours custom, all that. We figure all that as we go through the process development. Full-time's $10 flat rate per hour. And then part-time is $12 flat rate per hour. And a part of that, obviously, the VA's wages, they make anywhere from 40 to 60% of that number, depending on how experienced they are, depending on how long they've been a part of our platform, depending on how they scored through the 6 weeks of training we put them through. But then every 6 months, we're doing performance evaluations, and they're making more of that $10. So for you as the business owner, you have a very modelable, flat rate that you can expect that VA at, but the VA has a pathway to more money as well, which once again, they're people, doesn't matter where you live. Everybody wants a little more money. And then for all of the process mapping, the process development, both in the beginning as well as the ongoing, we do a one-time implementation of $19.95 on the front end, but that's good for the lifetime of the account. So even if you end up hiring 10 VAs with us, you're never paying for additional hires. If we ever do have to replace someone, obviously you're not paying for that, but then you also get all of that process development support. And where a lot of our clients will leverage that is they'll not just start mapping for their VAs, but their VAs become so intertwined with their teams that we'll do mapping for their US teams as well, so that there is that clear, concise handoff. So we keep it really simple. Say there's a lot of companies out there that there's like management fees or there's additional placement fees. None of that. At the end of the day, for us, what we really want to do, our VAs commit almost 2 months just to go through our training to get to the point where we place them with a client. And really, like I said, we've got 2,000 people over there. So our whole purpose is to provide incredible opportunity to our Filipino team members. But we want to make sure that's done correctly. So say for $19.95 one time, and then $10 or $12 an hour, hourly for their wages, you get all the support of what we offer.
That process mapping up front, as Mike and I know right now, that is very valuable. And probably worth every penny of it, because we're doing that in our business right now and just trying to get everything out of our brains and map it out, and then build how-tos and documentation and SOPs, KPIs. That's a lot of effort to do.
I know.
It's real time, right? I mean, there's number one, there's lots of consultants, and anyone who's gone through like an EOS or a traction course, there's consultants out there that they're not charging 2,000. They're charging a lot more,
cheap.
right?
Yeah, they're not cheap.
But then even just your guys' time, right? I know in the real estate world, everyone's like, well, I'm a $5,000 an hour person. It's like, okay, cool, sure you are, whatever.
Yeah.
But really, like if you're having to spend 20 hours, 30 hours, if it takes 6 months to get one process, like how is that really helping the business? So
Sure.
we try to 10X our clients' time. Typically in that 2 weeks, we need anywhere from 3 to 5 hours of your time, but our teams are spending anywhere from 40 to 60 hours documenting and building everything to where you have these beautiful SOPs and playbooks, and you just have to go in and say, yep, approved. This is what we do. Let's move to the next step.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if I'm $2,000, we should talk after this. I'm looking at my quality of life over the next 6 months and what we're expecting. I'm like, we should seriously have a conversation because we are in the midst of that right now. As we are starting to scale pretty big here. Awesome, man. No, it's super good stuff, Greg. I love everything that you have going on, and I love the refreshing take that you have on the the VA staffing situation and training situation, because it's the reality of it. And we've had several people reach out with VA companies or different cold calling companies that want to come on the show. And I usually turn them down because I do a little bit of research. I'm like, this company's trash. Like, I don't want them on there. So, but no, so lots of good stuff. So I guess last question that I have for you regarding the services and stuff that you provide, who would you say is like your ideal person that should come in and work with you?
Yep.
So if someone's sitting here and they're going, I'm not sure if this is for me, I don't know if I'm quite ready for this, or like I'm too big for this, who's your ideal target client?
Yeah, definitely. So what I'll lead with is anybody listening who's been interested in any of this, we have tons of free resources on our website. So rocketstation.com. We have everything from like hiring guides, example job descriptions. We even have like a master document that's kind of our business model in a box. So for anyone where it's like, hey, I want to do this myself, go ahead. There's tons of resources, blog content. So we can kind of help anybody at any size. What I would say where our system is perfect, if you're kind of stuck at that 1 to 2 deals per month, right? And you're trying to balance, like you almost have enough work to hire someone, but you don't, but you're working too much. That's really like where we can help you put some gasoline on the fire and get you the team that you need at a really good price to help get you to 3, 4, 5 deals consistently per month. And then obviously any operators out there that are, consistently doing the 2, 3, 4, we can just help you build a better business, right? And help you really build a team, both stateside as well as with our virtual team members. That's very process driven to where you can start unlocking new markets, new strategies, be an actual CEO, right? Get out of being the guy that's got to work in it and start being the guy or girl that can work on it and really drive the strategy while knowing the execution is taken care of. But like I said, anyone out there kind of just hustling, getting going, maybe you've done your first deal, done your first contract, rocketstation.com. We've got tons and tons of resources to kind of show people how VAs can be best used. Because with our pricing, it might not be the fit for someone who's only done one deal. Mm-hmm. But like I said, there are tons of great resources. We were talking about the podcast you guys did, that the 3 places you hire your VAs, where there are tons and tons of talented people. Well, one thing that I will say is, like, as a real estate investor, don't burn yourself out thinking you have to be the guy or girl that does everything, because at really any price point, if you put the right structure in place, you can find somebody who can help you double your business in the next 6 months. And even if doubling is just getting to that second deal, like, that's a good place to be in.
Yeah, exactly. I always tell people that there's kind of 2 places where our business changed. The first was when we hired our first acquisition manager that was doing sales full time. That was an American-based employee. The second one was when we hired our first lead manager, who was a virtual based out of Central America. And that was like literally changed the trajectory of our business. It was crazy. So, if you're in that 1 to 2 deal place, Greg can definitely help you out and make it a little bit simpler than having to go and post on Reddit and Upwork and all the other sort of things that we've done in the past.
And filter through and try to hire and do it all yourself. It's hard.
Exactly. Or like, you go through and you post this happened to me. It's just a funny story, but I've gone and posted on Upwork before, and I'll always have people send me like a voice recording, things like that. One of the first times I did that, I got all of these applications from these guys throughout like the Middle East, Pakistan, those sort of things. And they all sent me the exact same recording, like not like the same script, but like,
recording.
Yeah,
no, it was like a recording with a seller Like they had, there was like the one guy that had had a killer call, and he gave it to all of his friends, and they all sent me the exact same one. Goodness. So now I have it where they have to give me a recording, and they have to tell me about their favorite meal or something that's completely irrelevant. So that way it has to be custom. But you can avoid that here working with Greg. Awesome, man. So good stuff. We're going to dive into the end of show questions here. We have the same 3 questions that we ask everybody who comes on this show. The first question, we might change a little bit for you because I know that real estate isn't your full-time gig. Our typical first question is, what is your craziest real estate investing story? If you don't have one, let's talk about what your craziest business-related story is. And this can be a big win, a crazy thing, maybe when you had to go and, one of your Filipino centers had a hurricane and something, whatever you got.
Yeah, so I'll give you kind of a good one, and then one that kind of does touch a little bit closer home. So the good one is, we were just like everybody else during COVID, right? March 2020, and it's kind of what's going to happen, right? Where's real estate going? Where's this all going? So really the craziest thing is really the trajectory of our business and how we've been able to expand. I mean, I've got some great partners. We have incredible team members that work for Rocket Station that are based both here in the States and in the Philippines. And being able to go from a company of about 500 people to about 2,000 people in about 2 years is, we look back now and I look at myself in the mirror and see these bags under my eyes and I'm like, wow, that's crazy. Like, not a lot of companies can do that. And like I said, it's all a testament just to the incredible teams that we have and kind of the unique culture that we've created, being this blended organization between both the US and overseas in the Philippines. On a little bit more serious note, one of the craziest things that I've ever experienced, and for you guys, you've used VAs in the Philippines, number one, is the most beautiful place in the world. So anybody, I know this isn't a travel show, but anybody wants a free travel tidbit, you want to go to the nicest beaches in the world, go to the Philippines. But the tail end of last year over Christmas, they had a once in a generation typhoon hit an area called Cebu. It's in like the central part of the country. Google has a big investment there. We're moving a lot of our recruitment to that area. And they had a typhoon that came out of nowhere that, left almost a quarter of the city, completely just shut down. And seeing what our people were able to do ahead of the storm, getting people out, getting them to other islands or getting them further north where it wasn't going to affect. Literally, we're fully work remote. We have a small office in Manila, but we have 2,000 people everywhere. And seeing, work colleagues, right? But just pretty much kind of strangers welcome full families into their houses for Christmas was just amazing. It's one of the craziest, most incredible, inspiring things I've ever been a part of, ever seen. And just like I said, really is a testament to just how incredible our people are over there.
That's amazing.
Yeah. That's cool. It's a huge cultural thing too, I think. Like that sort of thing happens here and then everyone's like, shotguns ready. No one's coming to my house.
Hey, we're in Texas, man. There's some truth to that. I'll tell you. I'll tell you.
Christmas is a big event there in general. this year they had all the RVAs were showing us all the lights and all the lighting shows that they have over there. It's really cool.
It literally starts the end of September. It's amazing. It's so cool. We did anyone who wants to check out our LinkedIn, we did a cool kind of, we're all about like making the VA a person, kind of like we've talked about, right? So we had a bunch of our VAs just give tours of their towns. And it's like these buildings, they look like little Lego castles that are just all lit up with Christmas lights. It looks like the most fun time of the year, and it literally starts the end of September.
That's wild.
That's funny. No, that's cool. No, that's crazy. That is a cool story. I remember we've had several storms, and was that this past year? Was that a year ago?
In Cebu, it made landfall, I think, Christmas Eve, and then the storm went right through to the 26th, and it was serious. It was insane.
Yeah. We had one of our guys kind of go off grid. He it wasn't that storm, it was a different one, but he messaged me one morning. He's like, Mike, it's like, I'm on the roof of my house. Like, there's a lot of water. It's like, we're trying to get evacuated. Like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm like, okay, man, like, let me know if you make it out. And then he was gone for like 2 days, and he came back and he's like, all right, I'm ready to work. It's like, I'm sorry. I had to be out for a couple of days.
And part of it's like different, you kind of know what you know, right? So it's different parts of the world. I kind of joke now, having a more worldly view, like in America, we're very fortunate and very spoiled, right? For what we deal with. We had the same thing. We had leaving that storm, we had he's actually our head of IT for the entire company. And he's like, how he described it, he was like, had found one of the mountains that's about 20 miles outside the city. He was at like a campground in the parking lot on his hotspot, like clocks in for his shift the next day.
Oh my God.
Like,
that's awesome.
And he's got like a 3-year-old kid, like 3-year-old son. And we're like, dude, go handle your stuff. Like, you're good. We can. And every single day he's trying to log in. We're like, no, get out of here. Like, go handle your business.
The 3-year-old son's clocking in too.
No, hey, we don't say that.
Hey, what you don't know.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding.
Wow.
All right. That's cool. That's a cool story. All right. Second question. What is the number one tip you would give to a new investor looking to get started, or to a small-time investor looking to take their business to the next level?
Process, document. Doesn't matter if it's the first learning course you've taken. Doesn't matter if it's the 100th transaction you've done. You do not want to create a job for yourself. No one gets into real estate because they want another job, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I know you guys have a great coaching program. All the coaches, all the mastermind groups out there. You do not want to jump into real estate to create the most high risk, job out there, right? Where all of it's on you. So I would encourage everyone, do it in little increments as you go, as you grow, whether it's coming from a coaching class or whether it's a transaction you've done. Document, record, take notes, get as much of what you found to make you successful out of your head as possible, as early as possible, because you have to prepare, whether you're hiring VAs or hiring people locally. It's the only way you can scale in this industry, and it's going to make it a heck of a lot easier down the road.
Yeah, great advice.
Great tip for any business owner out there. Awesome. All right. Last question. Where can people find you, follow you, and reach out to you if you'd like them to do so?
Definitely. So rocketstation.com, like I said, tons of great information, tidbits there. Anybody who say maybe you're looking to hire a VA, maybe you're like, hey, this process thing, Mike, I think we're going to have a conversation here in a little bit for the process piece, but head over to our calendar, discovery.rocketstation.com. Say we do like little 15-minute consultations. Even if you just want some clarity, like, am I at the spot to hire a VA, or here's kind of my, pencil to paper process doc. How does this look? Is this going to help? Like, whatever your questions are, I'd love for our team to be a resource for any of your listeners. So just head over to discovery.rocketstation.com to check us out.
Cool.
Perfect. And if you guys have any interest in VAs, you would be foolish not to do that. They literally just said they have a free discovery consultation. You can get all of your questions answered there for free. And as you can tell, Greg is a wealth of knowledge, and I'm sure everyone at his team is as well. So awesome, Greg. Appreciate you coming on the show, man. Tons of great information here. Really, really excited to have had you on and had someone that is actually an authority in the VA space and didn't default to it because their other business sucked. They figured out how to hire people on Upwork.
You said it, not me. Yes. No, thanks for having us, guys. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah. Awesome. So anyways, guys, reach out to Greg at rocketstation.com. Is that right?
Yep. Discovery.rocketstation.com.
Discovery.rocketstation.com. Definitely take them up on that. And if you enjoyed the show, please go and share it with anybody who might find this interesting, who has any interest in VAs. This is a great show, not only for real estate investors, but for business owners of all types. You should share it with all of your entrepreneurial friends. Get them in the Collecting Keys hook with this show, and then they'll stick around for the Mike and Dan show where, people just listen to me and Dan talk BS on Wednesdays. So this is a great one to expand your podcast interests outside of your real estate typical niche that you probably listen to. So share this to everyone, guys. Really appreciate it. Aside from that, please go to collectingkeyspodcast.com/free. Get a free 5-step guide to start generating off-market leads. So that way, all of the VAs you go and you hire from Greg can follow up with all the leads that you're going to generate with our methods, and you can close some sick deals and make some real money next year. So, and this year, it's only March. So anyways, check that out, guys. collectingkeyspodcast.com/free. And thanks so much for listening. We'll talk to y'all next week.